Hi everyone, I hope you're good guys and welcome for a new video. So today I'm gonna show you how I made my Techno 2 Ableton template. So for those who doesn't know, I basically created this template during my live stream session. So you can even go deeper to see how I created from scratch. You can check on my channel, live stream number 29, 30 and 31, and we found out the whole process. But today I'm gonna focus on how I created each element and what were the decisions behind and stuff like that. And then next week I will talk more about like the whole arrangement, what were the idea behind the arrangement, the MIDI note, and etc. So here is the whole track. I'm gonna play a couple of parts. If you wanna find out more, I will put the link in the description. You can check on SoundCloud, and there is the full track. Something very ambient, very cheap. Alright, so let's dig into it. So first let's start with the kick. So basically the kick is a kind of basic 808 kind of kick coming from one of my library. I haven't done, as you can see, it's like straight out of the sample pack. I didn't have done any process. I didn't really need it, honestly. And the only thing I've done inside the drum rack here, you have the return where I put a bit of reverb. It's just to kind of, it's very subtle. I like to do that because it's kind of helping the kick to breathe, you know. I don't want this cavernous reverb effect. I just want to help the kick breathe, putting in space and helping as well sometimes to cut through the mix. So that's it for the kick. It's a straight, this actually doesn't need to be, but just here I've made it a different kind of pattern. You're gonna see. It was just to add variation a little bit. I wanted to try something different. Then let's jump into the ads. So usually in the Techno ads are pretty simple. Sometimes there is no even hats. And for this one, I've kind of used just one that I layered. It's basically a layer hat. And you can see it's this one with this one. So this is kind of more like a perk. And I add a bit of attack to make it like a bit like a kind of shaker sound, and with this open add both together, it gets it kind of shaker, but it's a bit as well a bit percussive. It's kind of percussive shaker, I don't know how to explain. And I've just treated them both with reverb. Reverb is just to kind of make them breathe, you see, to avoid to be too dry, for example. It's very subtle. I don't want, obviously, to have a too long tail. It's just a little bit, and same goes with the checker. I mean, like with this perk, I call it checker, but it's a perk. A bit of saturation just to make things a bit louder, EQing. Here the reverb is a bit more pronounced. And yes, EQ to, just like I like to use EQ to get rid of the frequency I don't like and to boost the one I want. You will see I will always do this pattern saturation to make things warm and brighter and louder, and EQ to get rid of the frequency I don't like and boost the one I think help the sound to stand out. And then the process I've done, so I've done this drum bus. I didn't really use the drive, crunch or boom. I mainly use the trend, and that's something I like to do. I use the transient in a negative way. Like this, I get rid of the tail of the reverb a little bit. So basically, why I do that is I use reverb. Like this, I put my hats in the room, and I don't want the tail to be too long. So I like to use transient because it's kind of ducking a little bit the reverb tail. So you can tell me, why don't you use just the GK with the reverb? I could do that, but the thing is, if you put a long GK, you kind of I don't know how to explain. You kind of put your hats in the room, so he got the tone of the room, but you want in the same time to be shorter. But if you bring the GK down, you're kind of gonna lose the tone of the room. And I wanna still keep the I don't know how to explain, but that's why I do that. And so then the interesting here is I kind of modulate the GK of the art along the track. So for example, here I will have like a very close for this part, and then I will put it a little bit longer for this part, the GK. So like this, here's more like a close like that. Here's more like a shaker close like hat still, and here is more like open hats, if I can say so. And then here is playing a different pattern, more like a shaker, and same, I have the GK modulating. Yeah, this one is the same actually, but I've got as well a send into the delay. So I add some delay sometimes just to add a bit of variation. So it's just to avoid, because it's basic simple hats, it's just to avoid to be always the same all the time. I play with the GK and I play with the delay to add variation along the track. Alright, then let's jump into the snare. So yeah, basically what we've got so far is okay, and then go there. Oh, no. So then we got the snare, which is sounding like this. Same, I haven't done much proper process, just I cut frequency I didn't like, put reverb to put it in the room, you know, like this. It makes sense with all the other elements. Same, I like to have just enough reverb to hear it, but don't to overdo it, because if you put it too long decay, it's sounding nice, but after it's kind of messing your mix. And here the pattern is interesting. I haven't done like the usual. Usually you will have like kick, snare, and you can see here the snare is a little bit after the kick. So you get this kind of nice groove effect. So it was just to change a little bit from the basic, pattern. All right. Then let's jump into the perc. So I've got what I've called Perc Shots. Basically, I've got more like a clave sound, something like a snare, low tom, and the rim. So that's kind of classic sound that you can find in a lot of groove box. But I wanted to kind of create a drum loop from that, and I already have a couple of ideas in my head. Like for example, the tom low to play kind of offbeat to get this kind of tukuntu with the kick. And then after I just like try things. Not overdoing it, just some. So basically it's kind of a snare, second snare. You will see that he play on one kick and the snare play on the other one when they are both playing together. So yeah, it's kind of different rhythm than the basic one, or than the most common one. So even with the kick playing like this, and you will see later the tom low as well help with the bass line, and I will show you later when I'm gonna talk about the bass line. But yeah, it's just basic perc element. I haven't done much process, just the one who need it. I had a bit of saturation to make them a bit brighter, EQ them, and same goes. So I use inside the drum rack, you can have like return, and I have a delay. I think it's the class. Yeah, the class has a slight delay, and reverb. They are all send in reverb. You can see send B, it's the reverb. And here I've done the same. That's something I've been experimenting lately. You can see that I tend to use a longer reverb, and then after I shut it down, I mean not shut it down, but I shorten the tail of the reverb with the transient knob of the drum bass. And here I had a bit of drive and crunch as well. So yeah, like this, everything stay sharp and clean, and yeah, and it's gonna help for the mix later. So you can see I have different pattern. Oh, sorry for the perc loop. Just depend the part of the track. Adding variation, you know, to don't always have the same. It's nice. And then I have what I've called Perc Random. So basically, I just like drop 3 perc in the rack. So this basically initially was to kind of help the transition. You know, sometimes it's really nice to put a percussion just before to drop new element. Like for example, here, listen here to this perc. You're gonna see it's gonna play just before the kick start. So that was the main idea, but then I decided, okay, why I don't drop this sample here and there randomly during the track. So what I've just done I just like launch record and just drop sometimes, play here and there. They are not even quantized, they are not even on the grid, they are like just randomly put. And because anyway, they're more like, you know, in the background, I had a lot of reverb and delay. You can see like I use echo, and the dry rate is almost at 50% with a long feedback, so which means like it's gonna be a very long delay. And same goes with the reverb, you know, a long decay time and 30% dry rate, which means like the tail of the reverb is gonna be super long, which is kind of creating this atmospheric. See, that's dry and with the echo, and then the echo make the sound stay longer in time. You see? And yeah, that's not super loud, so it's like in the background. And yeah, that was the idea behind that. And you see it's always changing, it's never the same. I just play randomly, like I said, along the track live. Okay, then come the bass line. So for the bass line, I use operator. For the techno, I kind of like to use kind of basic sine wave sound. The only thing I'm always doing is using well, here I use the sawtooth, but usually I use as well sine waves, working well. This one had a bit more harmonic, and then I just put a bit of FM. It's very subtle. Let me put this. It's very, very subtle. And then I use my rack bomb bass. I just like it for this kind of. It's just instant fatness. And then sidechain compression. So yeah, this first track I didn't talk about is sidechain. Basically, it's just a 909 clap, and it's on send only here, and it's what's gonna trigger my sidechain. I think I only use sidechain for the bass on this track. So like this, I've got this ducking effect on the bass line, and then just a bit of EQ to boost the frequency I like and remove the one I don't, and making the bass in mono and 120, sorry. And then bass sub. So basically the bass sub was just to support this lower note. And so I kind of duplicate and trying to make a bit more subbier with this corpus preset I've made. It's called air bass, which is just to add resonance in the low frequency. The patch is the same. I didn't show more, but it was like, yeah, the sawtooth a bit modulated by oscillator B, and a bit of envelope on the filter to make it a bit pluckier. And nothing super fancy with this patch anyways, subby bass line. And so yeah, this one is like kind of supporting this too low note. You can see. And this is giving a nice contrast afterwards. You can see. And yeah, I've just been a bit harder on the process with the bomb bass. I had a bit more drive and a bit more fat and harmonics. If you want to find out more about this track, I will put the link in the description as usual. And then yeah, it's just some EQ, sidechain compression here again, and EQ again, like, and making mono just to make sure that everything is low and under control, mono, and doesn't fuck up my mix. So yeah, basically now is, I haven't showed before, but with all the element. Alright, so then let's jump with the pad. So that's the group process. I'm going to talk about it later. Let's talk about the sound itself. So I just use, it's a F minor chord. So as you can see, it's F sharp, A, C sharp, and then I just like took the root note and add the one with 1 octave lower on top, and done the same with C sharp, which is basically +7 semitone from F sharp, and I bring it down an octave lower than the one from the original chord. Because basically the original chord was like this, and I just add. It's just adding a bit more harmonics and sound a bit more ambient, I don't know. So I'm gonna get rid of this flanger effect, and I will talk about it later. So basically, it's kind of simple patch, but there is, I mean, simple, not as simple, but so here I have oscillator 1 with a bit of pulse width. You see that the waveform is like saw pulse width bass, which is basically, I think, kind of between a sawtooth and a kind of square waveform. You can see it's like kind of weird, and it kind of sounds something in the middle. Same goes here. This is more like a, and so here I've got a low pass filter, so both goes into a 12 dB low pass filter. I could have put a Prodigy. I keep the normal classic one. Low pass hits a little bit, 12 dB to let pass a little bit of frequency. One thing, the second oscillator, I pitch it semitone upper. I don't know, it's just giving these nice vibes. And in terms of modulation, so I have a bit of modulation on the envelope at the beginning, but as it's the one chord playing in sustain the whole track, you just hear that at the beginning. And so it doesn't really matter because it's just like a long intro to avoid to be like too brutal at the beginning of the track, but then after it's still sustain all the track there. And here the modulation is the LFO1 and LFO2, which are both modulating this oscillator position. And both LFO modulate both oscillator, but as you can see, the LFO have different rate, amount, and shape, one from another, and the amount as well you apply. And even here, the amount you apply here is different for each oscillator from each LFO. So it will never be the same movement. You can see like here, for example, it's gonna go until the max, coming down, and then maybe next time it's gonna just stop in the middle. You're gonna see up, you see up, just is going down, and maybe next time it's gonna be more up there, and it will always change. And same goes with the oscillator too. You see up, this time it's going a little bit under, not until the maximum, and that's because both doesn't have the same rate, and both they doesn't really apply the same amount of modulation, so it's kind of always evolving during the track. I could have been a bit further, add some unison, but I didn't want it. I wanted to keep it simple. Bit of saturation to add harmonics. EQ, like usually, get rid of the frequency I don't like. And then echo, this echo was more like, yeah, to kind of give a bit of character. And you can see it's more like to remove it from the center, putting a bit on the side, and then after a reverb to really like long decay and long amount to really put it in the background and like sounding like a pad basically. And then what I've done, I've got this pad razor, which is basically exactly the same wavetable preset and patch, but here I've done this EQ sweeping technique. So basically what I've got here, I've got the LFO, one LFO which is modulating the frequency of the number 3 right here, and another LFO which is modulating the frequency of number 4, and here as well different rate, different depth. So that means like they are always changing, they are crossing each other, they are always evolving, it's never the same, and it's giving this nice sweeping effect. And then on top of that, you can hear sometimes like here is saturating, so you can, first when I saw it I said okay, let's remove it, but actually it's giving a nice saturated effect, so I keep it like this actually. And then you have this delay. So you can see here again, the echo is not really like as a echo like you usually use, like a delay you usually use. It's more like to give a tone to your sound. It's very short delay, and I add a bit of drive in the input as well. And what you've got as well here is some modulation. So you got a LFO in square form, who is modifying the delay, and you listen to it. It's like na 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 na. Here is straight, and here. So yeah, I put on the filter, but the filter doesn't really apply because I didn't modify here. But you have a bit of the reverb from the echo as well. So yeah, I really use it like to give character to the sound, not really like as an echo. And then the reverb to put it more in the background. And you can see this distorted effect, which is caused by the EQ8. On the end, I like how it does it sound on the global sound, so it's fine. I leave it like this when it's in the red. Don't be scared, don't be afraid. Okay, so then together, so you always have this pad moving, and then I decided I wanted to add a bit of flanger. And yes, I haven't said, but the pad is the cutoff of the pad. Both pads is evolving along the track. It's always different. Sometimes it's opening. I will come back to this in the arrangement part. Sometimes I put it more in the front, so I open the filter. Sometimes I want the pad to be in the background, so I close the filter. And then I apply like flanger. I wanted to try, so that's not something I'm usually doing. I mean, no, yeah. And here the amount of flanger is controlled by the LFO. So here, like same very slow LFO, and you see it's going up, and you have a bit of jitter, which is like making like a bit like weird. So here you don't have flanger, and here you have more. And I as well assigned the gain because it was basically when the flanger is at a high dry wet percent, the volume started to be very high, so I kind of automate. Like the more dry wet I've got, the more minus gain I've got. I don't know if you got what I mean, you know what I mean, but it's like automatically reducing the gain when I'm putting more flanger, basically. Alright, then we've got the chord. So here the interesting things is I use a kind of classic same, you see, waveform is like a sawtooth waveform, just one oscillator, nothing fancy, low pass filter 24 dB, but with an envelope on it, you can see. So this way you get this plucky and percussive chord. I use the Moog Prodigy filter, a bit of drive, a bit of resonance, and same I had a random LFO on the filter. It's just like it's gonna every hit like this is gonna be a bit different. Even though I'm automating, you can see along the track. I'm automating the filter along the track. It will never like be always at the same position. It's just to add randomness, and then a bit of amp, just to make it a bit lo-fi, a bit crunchier. And then I use my reverse delay. So just to have this delay but reverse, like the chord is basically, you see the delay is like reverse rather than this one is straight. Alright, this I will put the link of the description if you want the rack. You can as well pitch it, I haven't done it here, but and then I use my classic delay, so which is basically a more like kind of classic, so it's like a ping pong delay, filtered obviously, and a nice reverb to get this kind of, and another reverb. So I will put the link in the description for this rack if you want to find out more about it. And finally an EQ. So yeah. And then I've created this chord too, which is basically, for this chord I wanted something like, which is kind of responding to chord 1, but without being really a dub techno chord, something between a percussion and something between a dub techno chord. And that's why I kind of used the triangle waveform with the fold function. Like this I get this kind of metallic percussive effect. I'm gonna just cut down everything. Up, and you're gonna understand. Oh. See, you get a classic. Oh, let me bring that to be a bit louder. And then with the it's just kind of getting like a metallic percussive instrument, you know, like xylophone or kalimba kind of vibes. That's what I wanted. That's why I've done like this. And then it's going through a bandpass filter. As you can see, it's just like to really like make it precise kind of sound, you know, because it's kind of a track with a lot of synth element, and I didn't want it to take a lot of space another time, you know, especially when you have the chord as well already, which is kind of the same job. And yeah, very percussive. I have an envelope on the filter again an LFO to make it slightly move. And yeah, envelope, very sharp, short GK, no sustain to this kind of plucky effect. Then an EQ was very like to give a kind of weird color, and then a filter delay to get instantly this classic dub effect. Filter delayed with different delay on the left and the right, and different kind of filter. Very filter in the high, and inside is a lot of reverb, and another EQ to really cut everything. And so like this, he responds to so yeah, I really wanted like something between the percussion and the classic dub techno chord to respond to each other. Okay, then we go into, so this is the same, like it's evolving along the track, it's always changing. Same goes this one, it's always evolving and changing. And same goes with the Synth one, and the Synth one is this kind of sound, sorry. So this is kind of sounding, don't get me wrong, but a little bit like a kind of guitar. It's not sounding like a guitar, I know, but like it's kind of idea that I have, you know, like this kind of pattern. And how I create that is like a kind of FM sound. So this was just, it's not really like a magic recipe how I've done, like I put this for this, and it's like I just try things. It's FM synthesis, you see, different level, different pitch. I detune a little bit on the end to get this kind of nice slight detune effect, but then again it's going through a low pass filter and an envelope for this plucky effect. And so as it's sounding like a guitar, I say, okay, let's add an amp. And you see, like, you can get this kind of plucky guitar, noisy and bit, yeah, kind of amp guitar basically. And then a bit of overdrive just for the top end. Subtle. Saturator. EQ to shape the sound. Here you can maybe start to hear it more. It's very subtle, but it's just this extra crispiness on the top end. And then some delay. So here you can see I filter the delay on the low frequency. The reason why I've done that is because, like I said, it's already a supercharged track. There is a lot of elements, especially in the high with all the pads, synth, the chord, plug. There is some key coming after. So by putting the delay on the sub, this you can still get this delay effect. And because it's playing in the low frequency, it's not gonna mess up too much with the high. I mean, it's gonna less mess up with the high than if I was usually, because I like usually this kind of delay in the high, but for this one was wiser to keep it in the low. So here the drum bass, add a bit of distortion, saturation, and remove it a bit of transient, like I said before, to make things a bit sharper. I don't know, by doing that, I found it like it's really helping the sound to really cut a little bit through the mix more. It's like sharper, it's more precise. I don't know how to explain, but yeah. And then just this, a bit of EQ. And it's playing the basic pattern, a sharp A, B, which is the minor, 0, +3, and +5. Alright, then we've got key 1. Basically, I wanted to have a kind of electric piano kind of sound, a bit distorted, like the old sound of Perc Random, like what he was doing in Berlin Calling. This kind of kind of sound. That's what I wanted to get, and that's what I use. So I use electric from Ableton, which is a kind of, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, it's kind of emulation of an electric piano, like, you know, kind of Rod and stuff like that. And so for this distortion, granular carbono effect, overdrive, you see you get this nice tone on top. And when you play even 2 notes in the same time, it's even more pronounced. Saturation. EQ. A bit of ping pong delay. I could have filtered it actually to be even more like a carbon-esque. Reverb. So I usually don't put that much reverb on plucky sound, but because here's more like a dub techno ambient track, and you see the notes are playing like not repetitively, like in a short space of time. You see it's like between 2 notes there is a long amount of time, so you can allow yourself to have a longer reverb. And here I had auto pan, so I had this, but it's basically just 40%, which means like I pan, as you can see, a little bit on the right. So let's see, that is your stereo fit. Let's take this echo stuff. So here is the right, here is the left, and here is the center. I wanted my key to be a little bit on this part, but I wanted to move it. You see, like your auto pan, you can make your sound move around your left and the right, but I wanted to move, but I wanted to stay in this part. So that's why I use just 40%, and I pan in on the right. So like this is just moving like around like this. Left, right, up, it's moving like this. And then there you go. Alright. And then what I've done here, what I've called reverse key. Basically, I wanted to make a pad from this key, and I have a rack that I usually use, which is called Pad Maker, to create ambience from a sound. But this time I wanted to try something different, and I say, okay, let's duplicate this key track. I'm gonna do it actually live, and you can like freeze and flatten. All right, and then flatten, and like this you get this audio. Except what you can do is select here, and I think if you do Control R, even it's reverse, or if you just press R, it's reversing the sample, and this way it's gonna appear. It's just taking a bit of time. You got the same sample here, and you got you. So that's nice. And when if you take the same more or less process, the echo and the reverb up. Oh, sorry, that's not the thing I wanted to do. And you put it here on you. You get this nice ambience kind of sound. I had a bit of chorus as well. And what I've done is I keep the auto pan. So I keep the auto pan. So here I told you it's going from left to right. And what I've done here, I keep the same auto pan. It's the same movement. I put a bit more amount, and I invert here. So that means like when here it's on the right, the reverse is gonna be on the left, and when the reverse is on the left, and when the reverse is on the left, the normal one is gonna be on the right, and like this they're gonna cross to each other. So obviously here, as I decide to keep the original key just on this side of the right, the effect is less pronounced. But if I was putting a little bit more amount, it will be like perfectly crossing. When one is on the left, the other one is on the right, and so on. So let me put back this. And this final stuff I've done with this one, I say, okay, I could use this for other parts of the track, but you see it's kind of short sample. So now what you can do, and you can straight away stretch your sound. So if you go there, you see you have this little stuff, and you press shift. And now when you click, you can kind of automatically make your track longer, your sample longer, and basically you are stretching it. And it's what I've done here. So, oh, actually I took the reverse one. Sorry, and I've done like this, and like this you got the same as the one down. So now you got an even more longer and deep kind of pan. So that's a good way if you're looking for a pad or a texture to add to your main key. That's a good way to do it. And yeah, and then when they play both together, it really adds another dimension to your keys. So that's a very common and famous technique. It's usually used as well on vocal and stuff like that. Okay, and then I have my key 2 here. So that's basically, I use my ZFS plug rack. It's just kind of squarey, noisy plug. I will put the link in the description if you want to find out more about this. Was just something to get something hypnotic, you know, like you see this stuff which is always playing the same pattern, like dun 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 dun, and it's kind of hypnotizing you. And if you don't really pay attention, but then when you remove it, you feel it's missing something, you see? And it adds obviously variation to the track. And then yeah, the process is pretty simple: overdrive, EQ. So you can see here I pan. I will talk about on the next video about the panning. You can probably hear that all elements are like widely panned on the left and the right. I will explain you later why. And yeah, then finally noise. So I have 3 types of noise. I have first cracker. I use loops for all of them because it's quicker, but then I always like try to modify them a little bit. So here I've done something interesting. So that was the original loop, but it was too much cracker, so I say, okay, let's put auto pan. You see, when you put the width at 0%, it will act like the envelope shaper, like a LFO shaper. And with random, which means like sometimes it's gonna be on, sometimes off. See, most of the time it's off, but sometimes pop is jumping a little bit, going down, jumping, and it's like very random. And that's add variation and like randomness to your track. And here, auto filter, if you're familiar with my video, you know I like to do this. I like to high pass, and then I slight LFO, so like this, your auto filter is basically moving like this along the track very slowly. And a bit of reverb just to spatialize it. Then I've got noise. So here I keep it how it is, but I apply again this auto filter, so it's slightly modulating the filter. And then I've got this noise mode. So I add this basically noise loop I put on the stereo. And what I've done here, I've done the same technique downward for the pad. And like this I get during all the track this sweeping noisy effect. And yeah, and this, like for example at the beginning, okay, obviously in the middle of the track it's gonna be hard to hear if you don't really pay attention. But for example at the beginning, if you pay attention to it, to all of these noise elements and the pad, for example, you will And like this you got an evolving noise, evolving part. So yeah, it's a lot of very small detail. Obviously most of the people won't get it and won't, but you know, sometimes it's like you listen to a track and at the first listen you didn't realize, and then you, as the more you listen and the more you start to realize, oh yeah, this is moving like this, this is moving like this, this is moving like this. Oh, this element is here, I haven't noticed before. This kind of stuff, you know. So, and it's always anyway fun to play and to add this variation. I always like, even if I know that 95% of the people won't pay attention or won't know, but it's still adding, I think, unconsciously variation, and people get less tired of the track. Alright, so that's it for now, for today. It's already a long video, but I really wanted to take time to explain each element. I hope you like it, guys. Don't forget, next week I will talk about the arrangement. It's quite a special arrangement, different than what I'm usually doing. I hope you like it, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and see you soon, guys. Bye bye. Don't forget to like and subscribe.